volunteer as a North Carolina guardian ad litem as a child's foster kids advocate in court. So it's basically giving them their voice in court to the judge, is what it says as part of our training. So that's kind of where we got the title for the keynote from, is to give, everybody in diversity a voice. And that translates well, I think, into the sequel family and trying to help out the diversity. So, and you guys can, do whatever else with this slide. So I was going to mention the fact that I do run a virtual group and the summit panel. So, but we will get there. So before Past Folded, we had just started the virtual group to highlight, diversity and inclusion and all that stuff. And then Past Folded, and I was like, but then we rebooted it. So we're still alive. You can find us on Twitter at data_DEI, and then there's a link to our website. So then you can get to our meetup and see all our monthly meetings. We do a tech talk every other month, and in between months we have like a mental health check meeting where we're just going to chat and see how everybody's doing in the community. So you guys can check that out. I think our mental health talk is scheduled for next Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. So yes, go ahead. And then the Past Data Community Summit panel is coming up, and that link is incorrect because I don't know how to copy and paste right. That's the organizer's link. So just go to my Twitter and find it, or a bunch of other people's Twitters and look for it, or I'll send it to Ben and he can retweet it again because he's already tweeted it once. And sign up for our DEI panel if you would like to participate in that at the Past Data Community Summit. The call for speakers closes in 16 hours last time I checked, so got to hurry if you want in on that one. So a little bit of a definition of who falls into the community under diverse people. We've got, people of color, the LGBTQ people, women, minorities, neurodivergent people. And these people are all, and differently abled people. And these people are all normally quite often treated disrespectfully in our community and don't have the same rights to get into things. Like when they go to conferences and stuff, sometimes there's not the ability to get into doors and things for people that might be in wheelchairs. Neurodivergent people sometimes, they're just not considered to be the same as us, so we don't talk to them. Minorities, we all stay in our little cliques. We all know that we're battling the women's pay, scale thing happening where we're not paid as much as men. And then the discrimination in the other two categories has just always been obvious, as long as it's been going on. So we as allies need to help these categories get more of a voice in the community so they can all be equal and all be welcome in our community. And that's what this keynote is about. It's going to be about 9 different ways you can be an ally and help these people be more welcomed in our community and feel like they're part of our community. Now, I stole this picture from Oracle because I couldn't find a better picture in the tech community. Sorry, Oracle. But it's a podcast they were doing, and they probably would have had all white men, but they do have one minority in there. But this is a typical thing you see in the community, is just all white men doing things on all speaking engagements, all conferences and things like that. So, this is the stereotype that we got to break through. And this is what this conference has done today, which has been great on Ben and William's part to put this together. So the first thing we want to do is be a good listener. Now, listening is one of the best communication skills we can develop. It helps you to improve your overall communication, to build a better understanding of someone or something. You get to know their background and things that they've been through. You cultivate a better relationship with others when you're listening. Listening shows respect to somebody because you're not just cutting them off when they start talking and things like that. And it's especially important to do this with misrepresented and marginalized people because they don't feel like they get listened to as it is. So listening definitely will make you a more compassionate and better educated person towards someone that you're talking to. So that's the first and I think most important thing you can start with, is listen to somebody that's more diverse and see where they're at and where they're at in the SQL family and what things they think need to be changed or what issues they've ran into, and see if we can't be more open-minded, which is the next one. See how these tie together? And they're good. So next thing we want to do is be open-minded. We don't want to be closed off and not want to, you know, let people be part of the community because they fall in one of those categories, or go to a SQL Saturday or a Data Saturday when they get back to in-person, and go back to our little cliques and our groups where, you know, the males all hang together, the females and, you know, the minorities are in one category, and we're all cut off from each other, because that's, you know, closing our minds again, where we can't be around different people. So being open-minded means, you know, approaching topics or ideals that are unfamiliar to you, that typically don't align to what you have, what you know. So, and you do it with curiosity. So by welcoming this new information, ideals, or even arguments, you open up yourself to discover new possibilities and maybe even solutions to these problems. And approaching unfamiliar ideas and topics with, you know, this curiosity of your open mind, you can help navigate through, you know, the cognitive distance we have between how someone else feels and how we feel with conflict and disbelief on some things. So I think that's a good next step after you learn how to listen, is to be open-minded, because you gotta absorb what you listen to, and be willing to talk to people about what's going on in the situations. So being open to conversations with others can provide us with lots of opportunities to develop friendships and learn new things and support one another. Like, you wouldn't know something about someone that has autism and how they work in IT, or someone that's neurodivergent and has mental health issues, or someone that struggles in a wheelchair, or someone of color or a minority that struggles because they have a hard time getting jobs because they get discriminated against, if you're not willing to sit down and talk to them and listen about their experiences. So when you have the willingness to talk, you know, you take that approach of listening, and you be open-minded, that you're combining what we already learned, and you got a good recipe to be a good friend and an ally to that person in the diverse community. And beyond the community, you can, you know, be personal friends at that point. Now we got to be inclusive. So being inclusive creates us a space for all people to feel like they belong, which is very important in the SQL family. I know I've heard of people having stories of not feeling like they belong because of whatever group they fell into, which helps them build the stronger friendships, which we just talked about, and helps everyone feel supported and fosters mutual respect, which, you know, respect is very important. So inviting the diverse friends to hang out with you and your colleagues when you're at an event would go a long way in making them feel included. Just like, you know, we have that thing where you always leave an open spot in the circle whenever you're at a conference so somebody can come into it. You know, if you see somebody coming by, you know, pull them into that circle and then, you know, make the circle wider. And, you know, and just invite them to hang out on your own. If we ever get a summit in person, or, you know, whenever we get anything in person, you know, invite them out to dinner after an event. You know, make sure they're not just going back to their hotel alone because they're, you know, of their diversity and being not part of the community as much as we are because we're not as diverse as they are. Another thing you can do is to not make assumptions about people. So just don't do it. It's just not fair to people in general. So, you know, don't assume people's sexual orientation or gender identity from one of anybody, your friends, your coworkers, or community members. Remember that, you know, pay and intelligence are always questioned when people are of different, when they're minorities or women or not neurodivergent. So that happens when they're trying to get a job. So someone that is close to you and looking for support can be in the coming out process of, you know, their sexual orientation. So don't make assumptions by creating space where they don't feel the courage and love to do these things. Don't assume everybody has the same background, because minorities might be coming over from other countries where they didn't have the chances that we had in the West. As you know, some of the countries in the East or South Africa don't have the same chances as we do to get education and things like that. So don't assume that they're in the same backgrounds we have. And for people that have disabilities and neurodivergence, you know, we're often treated like we're just broken and we can't do things because of how we are, you know, dyslexia or ADHD. Someone with ADHD, there's no way they could concentrate long enough to do anything, and that's just not true. You know, somebody with mental health issues, all they're just going to miss a whole bunch of work. Somebody that has autism is just not going to be able to work with our group or whatever, you know, bias that someone has towards these groups of people. So. We want to include inclusive language when we're talking as well. So using inclusive language is a conscious effort that you have to make, because it's not something that we're really used to doing. It's something that's, you know, just came up in the last few years. So you have to make a conscious effort to communicate to ourselves and others a way that aligns with your values. So this includes just being respectful to all members that are different from us. You know, I use she, her, they may use they, them. It doesn't matter as far as pronouns what people are using. But by making these simple changes to words and phrases we regularly use, we help build more inclusive environments where people feel like there's room for them and they feel safe and they feel included. So, for example, instead of saying, hey guys, which I'm guilty of saying all the time, I'm trying to break that and say, hey all. I start all my emails with, hey guys, and then I have to back it out. So I'm trying to break some of these bad habits myself. Say, hey everyone, or say, hey all, you know. Come up with something where it includes everybody, because guys infers, you know, males. So you can also add your pronouns to your email signature so that, you know, people feel more included to be able to do that themselves. Your social media bio can also have that. And when you introduce yourself to someone, you can tell them what your pronouns were. That way, when you're coming across people that are different in their sexual orientation or just using different pronouns, they can feel included, and you've already made them feel included by seeing that and seeing that you're an ally by doing these things. So straight and cisgender people often don't think about their pronouns. So, you know, they know what their pronouns are, and we tend to make assumptions about other people's pronouns and feel like they're obvious. So now we need to confront our own prejudices and biases. As comfortable as it may feel to confront our own prejudices and biases, it's not. It just isn't. You've heard all the stuff that happened in America. I don't know how many people are Americans versus the rest of the world, with all the race stuff and the Black Lives Matter stuff in the past year. Even during the middle of COVID, people were rioting and you know, probably getting sick and stuff because of what was going on here that was not fair. And it happens to marginalized communities. I mean, unfortunately, there's still racism here. All these decades later, it's, you know, there's like a classism system here. I've heard of other countries having a real class system, but there's still technically one that you don't. It's an unwritten one in America that you just don't see. You know, it's just not written down. So, and it's not fair to people. So the only way we can truly become a friend and ally to any person in a marginalized community is to make sure we adjust our prejudices and our biases and become better at those. So ask yourself what beliefs and stereotypes you hold on to. Like, you can also start by being aware of your internal dialogue when you interact with people who have different attributes or identities than you. So when you're talking to someone that is different than you, what are you thinking inside your head? So start becoming more self-aware of the things that you're thinking about when these things are happening. So there's going to be a list of books, a link to a list of 22 books you can go out and read about diversity and inclusion in the workplace. So I gave you plenty of homework to do if you feel like trying to adjust some of this stuff. So hence why it's a educate yourself slide next. So once you've identified your prejudices and bias, begin by educating yourself. So you got a link at the end with 22 books on it. So, but there are thousands of books. There's even organizations, there's resources available online to learn about diverse communities. Because one thing, just talking about, you know, people of color, they don't like explaining why they feel the way they feel. It's not their spot to teach us the history of why it became that way. So learn about the history of the country that they came from or that they're in, and seek to understand more about what their life is in that country currently for them, and maybe the past history that led to the environment that they live in now and how they're treated now, which is very easy for U.S. history anyways. I don't know about other countries because I haven't had to travel or live in other countries. So another thing we want to do is treat all people with respect. This is actually my last point. So treat all people regardless of their gender identity, sexual orientation, people of color, neurodivergence, disability, or race with dignity and respect. You do not have to agree with their perspective, even though it would be nice, because, that's the best way to be in life is agreeable, but be able to relate to their life experiences at least, so that, you come across with respect to them, even if you don't agree. But don't be going around gossiping or teasing them or making offensive jokes or confront them about any of these things in their lives. These are great places to begin treating people respectfully. The seemingly small actions that you take here to treat people respectfully will help you become a good ally and make our diverse communities better and long-term, and will have more positive impacts on the community. So, in conclusion, to be a good ally, I picked out like 4 things. So number 1 was listening. So I think that's very key to this. Number 2 is learn what you can by educating yourself, because you need to educate yourself on what's going on in diversity. There's going to be a link again at the end for you guys. And just learn from your mistakes and apologize. If you use the wrong pronouns and they point it out, try to be better next time. If you treat somebody disrespectfully that falls in one of the other categories, learn from that and don't do it again. It's not fair to treat somebody with neurodivergency differently than someone else, or people of color different from someone else, or a minority different from someone else. We're all people, we're all human, we're all the same. We all started out the same way. We all started as babies and we grew up to be adults. I didn't have that in my original script, but it sounded good when I made it up, I think, maybe. So, and then the last point, make people in the Seco family feel included and equal to their peers. And you can do that by following some of the guidelines that I gave in this nice little speech. Here's a link to 22 books that you can make, as I'm sure Ben will make the slide deck available, maybe. If not, I will put it on my website for everybody to get. And all the images I got from unsplash.com, so it would be a pretty presentation.